I love it. All right, it is Wrestling Wednesday, so without further ado, we want to pay, be able to give credit where credit is due, and with that, our next guest joins us, and ladies and gentlemen, he is the host of Cherry Pickers. He is also the mayor of Wellsville for us here at YSN. He is the ultimate when it comes to wrestling. He knows the ins, the outs, and all the grappling and all the moves, and keeps us all up to date. He is our tribal chief. Ladies and gentlemen, we give it up for Gary Althiser. What's up, buddy?
I don't know about that intro. I feel like everybody listening needs to cut that in half and then take about 90% off of that, and then you'll get the real me. But I appreciate that very much, DJ. Thank you.
You're a legend, dude. We gotta
Oh,
give credit where credit's due. I thought that was all. I mean, the mayor of the Wellsville thing might be, but to me, my friend, my brother, yes, you are the mayor of Wellsville and never will be.
well, I think the actual mayor is doing a great job, and I'm going to let him continue that.
Spoken like a true mayor, right there. Like a true politician. Gary, I mean, what's been going on in the world of wrestling? We saw EOWLs, kind of concluded, and obviously a lot of success in the YSN world with the EOWL tournament. Where do we stand when it comes to today and moving forward with wrestling? What have you seen? What are the trends? What's going on?
Well, as of this Saturday, we'll be officially 4 weeks away from sectional. So we're heading into the last part of the season here. It's gone by fast. Just this past week, 2 huge tournaments, the Alliance Top Gun tournament, and then, of course, the OVAC tournament just happened. And then we have the Hepner tournament at Austintown Fitch coming up this weekend, as well as the East Palestine Bulldog Invitational first year for that's coming up. So the season is winding down as far as tournaments go. Within the next few weeks, the tournaments will kind of wrap up, and then you'll have your league tournaments. And then most teams have at least the last week, if not the last 2 weeks off before sectionals to kind of heal up, get their guys' weights in check, and then get ready for sectionals in the postseason.
I was just going to ask you, endurance this time of year. It's got to be something that, you're fighting through a lot of it mentally, physically, the ailments, the frustrations. If you're dealing with weight issues up and down, we just got away from the holidays. It's got to be a really tough situation for these wrestlers this time of year, knowing, either the year is not gone your way or it has gone your way and you're trying to keep the snowball rolling downhill.
Yeah, I mean it's a grind. It's a 4-month grind, and that's just the in season. Doesn't count the out of season stuff. So you really have to pace yourself as a team, as a wrestler, and as a coach, you have to do the same. If you grind your kids too hard the first half or first 3/4 of the season, then you can suffer burnout at the end of the season. That's for sure. So you just have to keep an eye on your kids and their health, see where they're banged up. At least for me personally, it gets to the last half of the season, we kind of reel back a little bit in practice just because there's always some lingering injuries. And by this time, you should be technically pretty sound as a team. You should be in shape. Your weight should be pretty stable. So you're kind of just at this point sharpening things up, getting healthy, getting your minds right for the end of the season.
As we gear towards the end of the season, Gary, who are some programs and some wrestlers that have had really good starts that we have to really keep our eyes on as we get closer and closer to sectionals and districts in the state?
Yeah, in the YSN network, Austintown Fitch has had a great year. Hubbard's had a great year. We've talked about them. We've had them guys on. Beaver Locals had a really good year. I could mention a whole bunch of teams, in the family. Those are the ones that stand out right away on top. Really, this is where the time of year where you'll really see, from last week on until the end of the season, where the best teams and also the healthiest teams will be the ones during sectionals and even districts. You'll see those teams winning sectionals or finishing in the top couple at the sectional tournament and sending 6, 7, 8 plus kids into the district tournament. So I mean, those are the teams that I thought that I could think of right off the top of my head. Salem's had a great year as well. They continue to have great teams with a lot of depth. So those are the teams I'll be keeping an eye on as far as the team aspect goes.
From a coach's standpoint, I mean, what does a coach have to prepare himself or herself for moving forward? From February 1st on into what you talked about earlier, these tournaments that really make or break your season.
Well, you've got to make sure your kids are at the weight that they're going to go, or if they're going down, anymore, you don't see a lot of kids dropping weight at sectionals. You used to see it a lot more. These days, you don't see it. But if you do have them, hey, you got to make sure that you're monitoring it and that they're monitoring it, because it's a long season and it's a mental grind. And if they're kind of, every single week cutting a bunch of weight, by this time of the year, they could just be mentally, your kids could really just be fatigued. So you've got to help them monitor it. Hey, are you eating healthy? Are you, staying away from Mountain Dew, more water, less junk food, those kind of things. But if your kids are experienced, they should know that. And you have to also think about wrestle-offs. A lot of teams have their kids settled and their lineup settled at this point, but a lot of teams will do a wrestle-off at the beginning of the season, one at the middle of the season, and then one before sectionals. So if you've got some competitive weights, you've got to think about those things as a coach and do your wrestle-offs and how you are going to approach the postseason. Because in wrestling, I don't know how it works in other sports, but as a district, all the coaches get together. It's by a point system, by how many weight classes you have filled, and the resume of each wrestler in the weight class will give you points towards your team. The higher your point total, the more options you have as far as picking your sectional. That's how it works in the Northeast District. So you've got a lot to think about heading into the end of the season.
Can you have someone, sorry, just a follow-up question. Can you have someone that, let's say you got two guys that, and this, I'm just pulling this out of the air, 157, and you have a wrestle-off. Can the loser of that wrestle-off, can you put them in the 160 or 153 or whatever it may be, wrestle in the tournament like that?
So, yeah, it'd be 150, 157, and 165. Yeah, you absolutely could. As long as their alpha weight assessment allows them to go that weight, yes, you could.
Explain that part. What does that mean?
So at the beginning of every season, every high school coach in Ohio has to have an alpha assessment or a weight assessment done for every wrestler on their team, where a certified assessor will come to you or you'll go to them. They'll measure every kid's weight, every kid's body fat, and every kid's hydration level. And first, your hydration level has to be adequate, or they tell you can't even test. They don't want anybody coming in there sucking weight. So once that's done, they'll take your weight, they'll take your body fat, they put it into a formula, and the state will dictate what weight you can wrestle every single day of the season. So if you have a wrestle off of two kids at 157, but one of the kids' alpha weight says they cannot drop to 150, then they would have to go up to 165, because at the sectional tournament, you can only have one wrestler per weight class per team.
I just learned something, Ant. Learned something new right there.
I feel like my mind was like the old X-Files meme where the numbers are hitting the screen. That's what I felt like.
A lot to think about, that's for sure.
I mean, is that a scenario where that happens a lot, I guess?
I mean, I'm from a small school. I've got 50 boys and girls per grade to pick from, and I got to battle against a great bowling program, a good basketball program, and a million other things. So I don't have a bunch of kids at each weight. I do have wrestle-offs. I've had several weight classes this year that had to wrestle off. But I'm sure, especially with the bigger schools, they do deal with that a lot. With me, probably 2 or 3 weight classes I have to deal with it. There'll be other bigger schools that probably have 6, 7, 8, 10 weights to wrestle off. So yeah, it absolutely could happen. I guarantee you that it happens in the network.
Incredible. Ant, go ahead.
When you have wrestle offs, and this is fun because you get some inter team competition, and the old cliche is iron sharpens iron. How much does wrestling each other and competing with each other in that sense build team chemistry and be able to say, hey, we're pushing you, you're pushing me, let's get better together, let's see who's the best? How much do you think that inter team competition helps with team chemistry in the locker room?
Oh, it absolutely helps with the kids pushing each other. If they want to get that spot, they're going to bust their butts in practice. And it's a lot different when you wrestle somebody that's on your team because you're going to know that guy well. It's not going to be like an opponent that's never wrestled you before, maybe doesn't know anything about you. You know everything about this guy, probably. You're probably drilling partners with that person, or at least some of the time you're drilling partners. When you go live, you're wrestling that guy. So you know each other really well. And you'll see a lot of upsets that way too, where you'll have a guy that has done better throughout the year at the tournaments. But when they wrestle each other off, his opponent that's on his teammate that's wrestling him off knows his go-to moves, knows the counters to it, knows his weaknesses, those kind of things. But it goes both ways. It definitely helps build the work ethic in the room, and definitely it's absolutely probably the most competitive thing between teammates, if you're talking about the season as a whole in the wrestling room. But I know for us, when we have wrestle offs, I tell my kids, you sit off to the side, you do not cheer, you don't say a word, you don't root against your teammates, and whatever happens in this room stays in this room, because at the end of the day, we're all on the same team, we're all here for each other, and it takes a lot of guts to get up in front of everybody on your team, in front of your coaches, and to say, I want to try to challenge for this weight, because there are a lot of kids that will just defer to somebody that they think is better. So I always tip my cap to the kids that are willing to step up and challenge the varsity guy. And I don't want them to ever feel like anybody in that room is not on their side. So I lay that foundation down from day one of practice. And I think that that's a good way to approach it, because it puts the kid, you're going to have friends, best friends are wrestling on the team. I just know I would never want any kid on my team to feel like they're not supported by anybody. And I think the kids embrace that. So there's a lot of dynamics to it.
It seems like it's like Lion King. Like you challenge the alpha lion, and then, like you said, there's just a conversation that happens in that room, and it goes nowhere else. Much like a fraternity of sorts. So when you have that happen, there's a pride, obviously, that comes with it. How do you handle when you have a wrestle off and the young man or young lady comes up short? Is there a conversation that's had to keep their head up? I mean, you can lose a lot of confidence in a moment like that.
Absolutely. I just know as a coach, I make sure to go talk to both kids, and especially the one that doesn't win, because some feelings can be hurt. But I do think that the rest of the kids on the team do gain a lot of respect for whoever steps up. So I think while in the moment it hurts, at the end of the day, I think it's a good thing, and I think it's a confidence builder for the kids too, because the kids that are challenging, they're coming in as the underdog, and if they could take that mentality into the tournaments and the matches for the rest of the season, it's a good thing.
Gary, we've seen over the last probably 5 years, 10 years, just as a sample clip, being able to recruit students in your own hallways becomes more challenging and more challenging, more challenging, especially with more sports being introduced to the OHSAA and being a varsity sport and activity. What are some of the obstacles that you've seen in your time as a wrestling coach to keep kids coming in? What have you heard about? What are some of the conversations you've had in the coaching ranks to keep kids coming to the mats each and every day and to keep them in the sport of wrestling?
That's a great question. I know over the years, Anthony and I, we've had this conversation before, but like I said a little bit ago, you have to compete against basketball. It's one of the most popular sports, not only in the country, but in the world. And every year there are wrestlers who maybe have wrestled their elementary years and their junior high years, and they say they want to try out basketball, and they never come back. So you have to battle against that. Bowling is beginning to be more and more popular in the state. I know we at Wellsville, we have an amazingly successful bowling team. If you would do their average wins per year, they win like 20 matches per year. They win their league. They have the MVP every single year, it seems like. I think they had a stretch where they went something like 66-4 over a 3-year period. So that's very enticing for a kid. Not only that, but you've got things that take up your attention, like video games and cell phones, and a lot of kids work these days. And it's just a challenge to keep the kids coming back to a sport where you've got to watch your weight. You've got to grind every single day in practice. It's Monday through Friday practice. And then you've got 12 to 16 hours on Saturday invested in a tournament. So you've got 6 days a week that you have to invest. You have to watch what you eat. You have to come in and do a grind of a practice that's harder than any high school practice. I don't care what anybody says. A wrestling practice is an absolute grind. And to do all that and push away all these other things that I talked about that you could be doing instead, it is tough to keep kids coming. But if you're running your program where the kids are building confidence, they see the benefits of that wrestling brings them in their mind. Most of all, you can really learn a lot about yourself, what you can handle. You can really overcome things that you maybe didn't think that you could in the past. Not only that, you build friendships. You go to tournaments, you see kids from other schools that you have fun doing it. Then hopefully they will continue to come back. If you can do those things, then you can keep the kids out. But there will always be challenges that this sport has that I feel like other sports don't, just because it is such a grind. It's hard on the body, it's hard on the mind, and you have to be disciplined to succeed in this sport.
Gary, let's start to preview this weekend. The Hefner coming up at Austintown Fitch, and Fitch always does a great job hosting these tournaments, and it's always fun when you can be in a place like that. What are some things to look forward to this weekend for the tournament at Fitch?
You know what? It's a great tournament. It's another, Fitch hosts a couple great tournaments during the year. They have a lot of good teams. There's a ton of YSN teams at this tournament. I think that it's as you're heading into the last month or so of the season, this is a good one again to test yourself these last few weeks. The Top Gun, the OVAC, the Hefner. You're going to find out who you are as a wrestler, and if you're coaching, you're going to find out what your team is made of wrestling in these tournaments. And you're going to be seeing some of the competition that you're going to be seeing in sectionals and districts. So you can also see if you want a kid to be at one weight or at another weight, what's best for them, what's best for the team. A lot of dynamics to it. I think that this will be another good one.
When you look at the wrestling as a whole on the network, I mean, who are some of the – I mean, I know we talked about some of the guys that have stand out in the last few weeks, but who are the names we're going to see in the 3 to 4 weeks moving forward as we head towards all the big names?
I mean, the Feisters from Hoban. You've got Louisville's got half a dozen kids that are going to be on the radar. Beaver Local has a couple kids. Bobby Buhite, he's been on the show. Jake Hughes, a freshman, coming in with a bang. He's an absolute he's a hammer, and he's a freshman, but he doesn't wrestle like a freshman. So he very well could be on that podium and very high on that podium at the state tournament. Salem, again, they've got a handful of kids that could as well get to the state tournament, maybe place when they get there. South Range is doing well. The C. Schultz kid is really wrestling well. Caden Walker, he had a good tournament at the Top Gun. I could name off a ton of kids and a ton of programs. Those are the ones that stand out to me. Austintown Fitch has had a great year. Of course, Hubbard doing great as a team. We had the Hackwelder kid on last week. I know that he's got his eyes set on standing on the podium. So really, to say one or a few kids, I couldn't do that because I wouldn't be doing justice, because I don't know if anybody realizes it, on the YSN network, there are some really, really great wrestling teams and some really great individual wrestlers. And for me, it's an exciting time of the year because I not only get to experience it as a coach, I get to experience it on the network.
Here's the big question, Gary. We had a lot of placers last year in Columbus. Do you think we can top last year in YSN placers?
Yeah, I don't know, because like I said, when we started this season, there were a lot of kids that graduated, a lot of really good wrestlers that graduated, but there'll be new guys that pop up, and there'll be unexpected guys that pop up. So I don't know. I think we got a shot at it. I think it might be if I was betting to say what we
You
talk.
are.
I would say it'd probably be like a plus 250. So I'd say the odds are not in your favor, but if we were to come through with them, it'd be a nice payday. Let me say that.
I think the big question, and I'm not sure that you've ever been asked this, so I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Oh boy.
I mean, and it's objective. So you've been able to see this firsthand, and again, we talk about the intro, and you're bashful and you're very humble when it comes to this stuff. But honestly, between you and Chris Colucci, you guys are carrying the banner for wrestling as it's never been done before. It's never had this kind of eyes on it. It's never been tracked like it's being tracked right now. And I think I think we can all be in agreement that it's only going to go up from here. But over the last couple years, as you've been part of these Wrestling Wednesdays and shined a light on wrestling, have you seen wrestling become more popular outside of kind of the room, as opposed to just inside, and parents that are obsessive about this sport and coaches that are obsessive about this sport? Have you seen it grow in popularity around the area?
Absolutely. I mean, Wyason's done a great job. There's never been anything like Wyason for these high school kids. They've had a newspaper, and then you get 2 or 3 minutes on the local news station while they're doing their 5-minute sports section, 6-minute sports section. So absolutely, Wyason has been an absolute big help. But and you know what else has been is social media. Social media has really exposed the sport on a different level. The technicality of the sport now, the technicians that you see on the mat, the kids are at just another level as far as moves go, as far as being masters at any position, at takedowns, top position, bottom position, whatever. It's just at another level because the information is shared so freely now with social media. You get on Reels, you get on TikTok, and you can watch these guys who've got hundreds of thousands of followers. There's a guy named Caden Henschel, I think is his name. I might have screwed that name up, but he's got a really big following on social media. He wrestles in Division II, and he will put together highlight tape of his wrestling tournaments. He'll tell you what he did right, what he did wrong. And I think when kids see that, they see just how the sport works and how it can be really fun, especially when there's a guy showing you the highlights and he's hitting these really crazy high level moves and he's really good. Those kind of things have done a great job for the sport. And the sport is actually growing according to the NFHS, the National Federation of High School Sports. The numbers for total wrestlers in the country has increased in the last few years. And I think a lot of that has to go to the exposure, but also girls wrestling growing.
And congratulations, by the way. Girls wrestling is officially going to be a NCAA sport now?
Yes. Yes, it is. It is now officially division. Yep. NCAA sport.
Monday?
Yeah, just this past week. Yep.
Unbelievable.
It's one of the ones the high school got first and then trickled up to college. It's usually the other way around. So
yeah, you're right. It usually is. Just like with the rule changes in the points this year, that usually does come from the top down. I'm not sure what took. They probably needed to honestly wait to get enough teams, enough schools sponsoring teams. That might have been the reason why. It's tough for colleges to sponsor non-revenue generating teams because their costs are a lot higher than high schools. They're paying head coaches livable salaries, and they have to have the facilities. Whereas with the high school, you can pay a coach, just a stipend, like a side job stipend, and you could practice in a gym or somewhere else, where that might not be the case with the college teams. So I think that was probably why, but it's great to see. And it's been so good for the sport. It's just as a person who loves the sport, just from a fan point of view, the girls wrestling has been amazing.
How does that springboard into more opportunities for our local regional wrestlers here for the fairer sex?
Oh, I mean, you're going to have more opportunities to go and to go to school and to get scholarship money. There are just more avenues and more opportunities, and especially when these schools are first starting out and they're first starting to recruit, those are the times to pounce. To get an opportunity to go and play a sport in college, get that. Get that scholarship money. There's not one of the most valuable things ever would be a free college education to springboard you into a successful career, a lucrative career. Take advantage of it. You never know when those opportunities will come and go. And I will say, unfortunately, wrestling is one of the sports that if a school is feeling tightening of the budget, they're one of the sports that usually get looked at to be taken away because it is expensive to run a sports team. I mean, I'm sure we all know this, but I don't know how the average person knows. Not many sports in high school or college generate money in the positive. Usually it's football, basketball, and maybe one or two others that finish in the net positive. Those sports pay for everything else. So you never know when these opportunities are going to come and go. Take advantage of while you can get them.
I mean, in being where we are, our locale in the Midwest, in the Great Lakes region, we see a lot more wrestlers, better quality wrestlers at the next level than a lot of the other states. So will it translate the same for women? Going to college as well? Is that a 1-to-1 basis basically when you look at that, or are we going to see other states step up because they can or they have a greater population of wrestlers and potential wrestlers at the next level?
That's a great question. I mean, I think it'd have to translate just because the girls are going to be in the room with the guys. And, Pennsylvania is the #1 state in the country for high school wrestling. Ohio is right up there in the top 5, and a lot will argue the #2 state, if not now, it has been in the past. But I will say the one thing that kind of is working against Ohio with the girls wrestling is we were later to the party than some other states were. So there were some other states that got on the bandwagon first. So they're going to have deeper, as far as the quality wrestlers, because they're just going to have more kids that have come out because the opportunity was there first. But I don't think it will take long for us to catch up. And I think we're right there anyway. We do have some really great wrestlers in this state. And I do think there will be a transition from the quality of wrestling. I don't see how you could not have it.
I can think of some girls on the YSN network that might get some opportunities really quick now that option is available, because we have.
Hey, our
really
big dog
good
with
girls
Valley
wrestlers.
was a female.
That's right.
This week.
Do you like that, by the way? Do you like being able to mix the boys and girls and big dogs?
Heck, I thought that was a great idea. It's why not? Why not put them right up there head to head? And we saw with the first one, what happened. They definitely deserve it. They they deserve to be there. They go to tournaments just like the boys do. They have to win just like the boys do. They go to practice every day. Why not throw them in? I thought that was a great idea. And I told Anthony last week I was really interested to see who won that. And Paige Cowan, she's a great wrestler for East Liverpool. She's a sophomore. She placed at the state tournament. I saw her win probably the most exciting match I saw all weekend at the state tournament that first day, where she got a takedown. I mean, with 0.1 seconds left, she popped her head out, got the takedown, won her first match in a big upset, and ended up placing. So I think she's very deserving. I really like that idea. I think we should stick with it.
We have a gentleman waiting backstage who we've been waiting for. We're about a half hour in, but we've been waiting for literally all of our lives here on YSN.
Uh-oh.
We'll give him a sec. Usually,
of course, my internet drops. He is the next generation of great wrestlers in our area. He is the main event, and over the EOWLs, not only did he win the 157 pounds, he also went right to the table, ripped off the YSN flag, and carried it around like the champion he is. Ladies and gentlemen, from Beaver Local, Jake Hughes. What's up, champ?
Nothing. Thank you guys for having me on here.
Thanks for being here. First off, I got to ask you the question. Did you, when you won it, I saw you look over at the YSN table where Chris Colucci was. You kind of gave him a nod and you ran over, grabbed the flag and started carrying it around. First off, you're a legend. You just got real famous for the next 4 years, my friend. Was that your idea, or do we have to give homage to the great Fur Colucci?
Well, me and Boo Height were kind of warming up there on that mat before the finals were getting ready to go. And Colucci came up to us and was like, he kind of asked Bobby if he would want to do it, and Bobby had his 100-win banner, so he was like, "I can't do it. I'm gonna have my 100 wins after this," and I was like, "I'll do it." So after that match, I kind of looked at him, and he was like, "Let's go." Then I went over and grabbed it.
I don't know if you heard the call, but Colucci made it sound like he was Jim Ross, where he was like, "He took the flag! He took the flag!" Like you literally were the Stone Cold Steve Austin of YSN, and probably will be forever. Jake, you're just a freshman, and
Yeah.
and I think Gary mentioned it earlier. You don't wrestle like one. What has what do you contribute all your success to at this level and transitioning so quickly from the quote unquote amateurs to the varsity level so quick, and obviously championships quality and caliber wrestling that you bring to the table at such a young age?
I mean, really just my training. I mean, I've been training at the highest level all my life. So going out there on a high school mat's no different than going out there with practicing with these kids my whole life. So I just know that I've been trained and ready for it. So I've just been out there and having fun now.
I mean, first years, butterflies, you have to deal with them. What was it like to kind of have your first high school wrestling match? What were some of the nerves like? Did you have nerves, or were you just like, I'm good to go?
I mean, obviously the nerves are there a little bit before every single match you have, but I try to make it more of like excitement and turn it into more of a positive thing rather than like sitting there nervous and locking up. I just try to use it as excitement and know that I'm ready for it.
Jake, first off, if you want to be invited to DJ's kids' baptisms, his Christmas dinners, his birthday parties, then you grab the YSN flag and you run around with it. So I think that you're going to have a friend of DJ forever. But you just finished up the OVAC tournament. I'm checking out your brackets. Yep. You kind of blew through all the way to the finals. Then you had a really experienced kid from Cameron, West Virginia, with great program there, who I think he had won it in the past. You're able to grind out a 2-0 win. What did you think of that tournament? And did you expect? I mean, he's a senior, so did you expect the kind of challenge that you had?
I mean, yeah, that's a great tournament. OVAC is always going to have good, tough brackets there. And going through, I pretty much handled everyone pretty well. And then getting to the finals, obviously, that arena is a good atmosphere to be in. And I went out there, and I didn't really wrestle my best match, I felt like, in that finals match. Ended up getting one reversal and just ended up scrambling a couple of times and figuring out a way to get it done.
Jake, when you look at what Beaver Local it means to wrestling in this area, and it's a who's who, right? When you look at the program, the traditions, the championships, for you to be in that room where so many have done what they've done, does it inspire you? And who were some of the guys that you looked up to and still look up to maybe to this day?
I mean, yeah, like even when I was littler, I would always go into that high school room and try to grab the bigger guys. Like I would always try to grab Cole McComas, Logan Hours, Mark Emmerling, all of them, like whenever I was coming up through middle school, just to get that feel when I was littler. And even in the room now, me and Bobby, we get into good live goes every day at practice.
Yeah, you talk about Bobby, and it wasn't too long ago he was in your shoes as a freshman on the scene, putting his name on the map, doing all the great things as a freshman. Did he give you any advice on how to deal with freshman year and how to kind of be ready to go as soon as you come on the mat?
I mean, he's always by my side for every tournament, and he's always just kind of like, that you're ready for this, and we both just push each other every day so we're ready for every match that we have.
So you guys wrestled at Cambridge, you wrestled at Brecksville, you wrestled at the EOWL, you wrestled at the OVAC. I mean, that's a pretty good grind to the season. Do you feel like your schedule's getting you ready for that postseason run?
Yeah, I mean, every one of these tournaments is getting me ready for March, and I feel like I'm prepared for it. A couple of tough losses I've taken this year, a couple of tough wins I've had. All of it's just getting me ready for that end goal.
Is it challenging to be sitting here as a freshman and to have, obviously a lot of experience in the sport, but there's so much ahead of you? Who do you kind of point to as the people that have led the way for you and have you can shout out to now and say, hey, thank you for making me kind of who I am today?
Yeah, I mean, all the Beaver local coaches out there every day helping me. Adam Kabala has been my main coach. like as far as outside of the Beaver local room. And he's been helping me a lot with even like getting my weight on point, getting those extra workouts in, my diet on point, and a lot of those little situations. He's always been like my main guy in there. And then even like my parents being there supporting me when I'm at home and when I'm not feeling the best cutting weight.
Everyone knows the physicality of wrestling and what it takes physically to be a wrestler, but it's also a big mental strain, and you have to be mentally tough in this sport. Talk about some of the routines that you do and some of the things that you do to get yourself mentally right during a match, before a match, and how you stay mentally strong through the grind that is a wrestling season.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is mental. And one thing that I've been doing is wrestling mindset every week. And that's helped me out a lot over the past year. I would say I've been doing it. And just those little lessons every week has really helped me out with relaxing under pressure and knowing that you're ready and believing in your training and all those little things.
Every week, I ask two questions. Number one, who's your main drilling partner? Who makes you better in the room? And I think I'm going to answer. Number two, it's been a tough week. You made a cut. You step on the scale. You're a 10th under. You step off that scale. What is JQ's go-to meal?
I mean, yeah, my partner every day in the room is Bobby mostly. And right after I get on that scale, first thing I'm grabbing is probably a Pedialyte. And if I'm getting something little to eat, probably like an Uncrustable.
Oh, it's a
So
simple
he's
one,
still
Am.
disciplined. He's still disciplined
Yeah.
when it comes to that. Like he could get a pizza,
Yeah,
what
we've
a
heard
steak
Wendy's,
hoagie,
we've heard
Wait,
McDonald's.
Baconators, Chipotle for breakfast,
baconators. Look at you.
pickles and the pomegranates. We've
Yep,
had
we
a lot
got
of
that
things.
one.
Goodness gracious. All right. So we got to say what everybody else is thinking. Beaver Local, for as long as it's been around, has been a school that cancels or delays every single time there's a snowfall. For good reason. It is a school that has a 100-mile radius to bus kids in. My question, especially because you are living in the season, does that ever mess you up from a scheduling standpoint? Obviously, if the school's closed, do you have to make arrangements to get into the room and get practice? Because practice can be canceled. I mean, how much discipline goes in it for you, and how much frustration is it this time of year to have your schedule turned upside down because of school closings?
I mean, it's not really that much because our coach McComas does a good job at even if school's canceled, we're still having practice. Even if the time's a little bit messed up, we're still having practice pretty much every day. And as far as like our schedule and everything, like we didn't have school today. We have a match tonight. We're still going to go wrestle in it over in Oak Glen. And it's not been that much of a like struggle with having a lot of snow days, but sometimes it's nice being able to chill and then go wrestle.
I was gonna say, do you still get cranked up? Like we used to watch like WTOV or WFMJ like it was the NFL draft, and when our school was on there, like you celebrate, or maybe you're too excited to go back to bed. But do you still sit around and like wait for Beaver Local, or you're just like, I know we're gonna be canceled. I know that this is what I have to go through.
I mean, I'm definitely excited whenever I see that Beaver Local post of no school, but it's because I know a lot of the schools around us will have school too, and then we see that. I get excited every time I see it.
Even
feel
that
like,
2-hour delay, right?
Yeah.
I feel like you could have like a foot of snow in cold weather, extremely cold. Wrestling coaches would still be like, "We have practice.
Yeah, we pretty
Let's
much
go.
have
This
practice
is
every snow day.
wrestling. We don't let anything stop us. Cold weather, snow, hail, freezing rain, doesn't matter. Get in the wrestling room."
Can I ask this real quick, because we were talking about sorry about that. We were talking about earlier, Jake, what drew you to wrestling? Because there's so many options nowadays, with video games, esports. Gary was talking about bowling and all the other things. What drew you to wrestling? Did you come from a wrestling family, or is it something that just kind of enticed you on its own?
Well, I was young. I think my dad went to go sign up my older brother to wrestle whenever he would have been like 7 and I was like 4. And the coaches in the youth league at Beaver Local were like, "You want to sign him up too?" And my dad was like, "Sure." And I was 4 years old, and it's just stuck with me ever since.
Hey, I know you're working with those the wrestling mindset guys, and every great wrestler has a good mindset. Do you have any goals for the end of the season, or are you focused more on one match at a time? How are you going into the season and trying to finish out your year to feel good about the season at the end?
I mean, I definitely try to look at the whole season, but then also every match is kind of the same. I don't want to look at it as like my whole season depends on how the state tournament goes. And obviously, it's a main goal to be a state champ this year, but I don't try to put a lot of pressure on the state tournament like that because I know that I've wrestled kids just as good as kids at the state tournament, and the state tournament is just another tournament. So just going out there and wrestling every match the way I can.
We talk about transitioning to high school wrestling as a freshman. What about high school in the classroom? What's the transition been like from middle school to high school, where there's more schoolwork, there's more expectations on you from teachers in high school? How has that been treating you so far your freshman year at Beaver Local?
It's been pretty good. I've been staying on top of everything the best I can, and I've been pretty good in the classroom. I haven't noticed a whole lot of change because even at Beaver Local, the coaches or the teachers have always been pretty on you about getting your schoolwork done, and I've always been that kind of kid in the classroom who's making sure everything's done the night before, and I've been pretty much sticking to that and been pretty good.
Jake Hughes with us from Beaver Local. Jake, one last question before we let you go. Certainly, we're excited and happy that you joined us here today. If you were in the room with that 4-year-old Jake Hughes and you're in the room with the future 18-year-old Jake Hughes, what's one thing that you would tell that 4-year-old and give them the advice? And what's the thing you would ask the 18-year-old of what's about to happen and hope that's going to happen in the next 4 years?
If I had to tell my four-year-old self one thing is just to have fun with it, because at the end of the day, it is just a sport, and you need to have fun with it and go out there. If you put in all the work, if you train every day the best you can, then at the end of the day, all the matches are just fun, and leave it all out there.
And then what about that 18-year-old? What would you ask him?
Just, did we do everything that we could? Did I put in the work? Did I do everything? Did I prepare the way I could every single day? And pretty much just, did I do all that I could do?
He's a stud. He's a stud. He's a stud at 14, 18, 4, whatever he is. He's a champion. Right now, he's a champion, 157. We're so proud of you. Welcome, my friend, to YSN Lure. You made an impact quickly, and you will forever be the darling here on YSN. Jake, thanks so much for spending some time with us today. We wish you all the best tonight and moving forward into all the tournaments you're going to be in, brother.
Yep, thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, Jake.
There he goes. Jake Hughes. My gosh. He's so well put together. Obviously, from a physical standpoint, he's got all the tools, the traits, and everything he needs. But mentally, like he's quick and he knows it. And when you do these interviews, you learn kind of who's kind of selling, so to speak, and who's just shooting straight. And that young man shoots straight as an arrow. He's got so much talent and so much ahead of him. Gary, when you look at a freshman like that, you've got to be salivating. And if you were the coach, you've got to be sitting there being like, man, the potential for a young man like this. What goes through your mind when you see a young man that has that resume already built up in his freshman year?
Oh, everybody around the area, the coaches, dads, wrestling fans have known about Jake for a long time just because he's been so good. I think everybody in the area has kind of been waiting for him to come in high school to see what he can do. He's got the mindset of a champion because he is confident in himself, but he also, I think that he takes things one match at a time. And I think he's got his mind right where he needs to be. And he's been wrestling around the country, his whole life. So he's had these big matches. So just like he said, these matches that he's going into, these aren't the biggest matches of his life. These are just another match in his life. And he's approaching it the right way. He's got a great partner in the room. He's got, Bobby Buchheit's in there with him, 3-time state placer, 3-time OVAC champion in there with him, pushing him every day. I'm sure those two are making each other better. And as a coach, I would be absolutely excited to see what he could do in the state tournament in his career. And I'm sure Coach McComas is there, but they've known this was coming. They know that he was coming up and that he was going to be something special. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles things here in the postseason. And I can guarantee that he's going to have a lot of guys in grades 9 through 12 all over the state looking at him to see what he's doing and if they're going to have to go through him to get to the top of the podium.
In every professional sport, we hear when someone gets drafted their rookie season, we hear, they were put in a really good situation that helped them succeed. You know a lot, Beaver local program. You know a lot about it. We've had their coaches on plenty of times here on Wrestling Wednesday. How much of a benefit is it to a freshman to be in that program and that atmosphere with those expectations?
Oh, yeah. Hey, when you've got good kids in the room to push you and to make you better, it absolutely helps. But more than that, it's on you as a wrestler. If you want to be good, you can be good. I absolutely think he's got that. And then he's got the guys in the room to push him, other guys that want to be good. So if you get two guys together like him and Buhite that both want to probably have the same goal at the end of the day, to both be champions, I think that you've got a recipe for success. And we've seen it right now because they both won the OVAC tournament. That's a huge tournament with teams from two different states. And I think that it's going to be fun to watch those two guys this year in March as we head to the state tournament.
Kind of a silly question, I guess, but when you have multiple people in that room or in any sport, a dugout, a clubhouse, whatever it may be, is it that much easier as a coach to kind of create that discipline that you need for excellence, or can you do it with one person and help filter down that pyramid of like you asked the question to Jake about if you had one meal that as soon as you got off the scale, and he was able to quickly stay disciplined. Like he could have said Chipotle or a pizza or whatever, and he Pedialyte. You know what I mean? So is it one of those situations like you're almost praying for multiple kids with that discipline and that kind of, I don't know, idealism that they want something worse than they want anything else?
Oh, yeah, it absolutely helps the room because the other kids see it and the kids see who's successful and what they're doing and the leaders in the room. The most vocal kids are the ones that, the younger and inexperienced guys gravitate to. But it's not always easier because sometimes when kids are really good at any sport, they can sometimes think they don't have to work. So it could also work to your disadvantage as a coach. I don't see that at all from him. There's no way he could get to where he is by being like that. But to answer the question in a general way, it absolutely helps. But that just because a kid has been successful, it doesn't always mean that they do the things that you're saying, DJ. So the ones, though, at the end of the day that end up at the top of the podium at the state tournament or at places like the OVAC tournament are the ones that work hard. And that almost always translates to at least some of the kids following that and wanting to do the same.
Man, when you think about a young kid that comes up as a freshman in general, I'm sure you've had a lot of good freshmen in your coaching career that came up that were really talented. How do you kind of balance the coaching aspect of keeping them confident and keeping that swagger they come in as a freshman, and also just kind of trying to ground them a little bit and say this is still high school wrestling. You're going to be going up against seniors. You're going to be going up against guys that are a lot more experienced than you. You got to be a little bit of that got to keep the swagger, but got to be a little bit more of that, be ready for that stage too. How do you kind of balance that as a coach?
Hey, I've said it a million times. I'll say it again. Every kid's different. You reach every kid a different way. You just have to kind of see, what the kid responds to, where they kind of are mentally. If they're nervous about being, up at the high school level, hey, listen, it's the same size circle. It's you and one other guy. It's the referee out there. The scoring's the same. This is no different than anything else. And that kid's probably thinking the same about you. And if they come in with a little bit of an inflated ego, hey, you've got to take this serious. This is not going to be like junior high where you're either going to be the oldest guy or somebody's going to be a year older than you. Now you could have guys that are 3 years older than you or maybe even 4 years older than you. So you need to kind of get your get your mindset right, and just be ready to go to battle either way. You just have to approach it individually with each kid.
G, we appreciate you popping by each and every Wednesday. You are, as I said, the tribal chief of all things wrestling here on YSN, my friend. Best of luck to you this coming week. We'll catch you next Wednesday, and certainly keep on keeping on, dude. We're proud of you. Keep it up, and thanks for keeping us informed.
Hey, I appreciate this a lot. Thanks for asking me on year after year, week after week. I hope you guys will keep me around as long as you want. I'll be here.
You're a legend, buddy. Appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, GA, Gary.